BLG versus IG, game number 1. Annie, Alistar, and Pantheon, I think really pivotal champions that IG have leaned on, especially that Annie and Alistar. I mean, marquee champions for both Rookie and Meiko throughout the split.
So I'm not entirely sure if IG had side select and decided to go for red, or if BLG for some reason, despite being the lower seed, ended up getting that side select. But it is an interesting thing to continue to observe as we go throughout the start of this draft. You see a lot of those OPs in the solo lanes being taken away on IG side. Bin's Rumble, Knight's Azir, both off the board. On his Meiko also has been such a threat. And Yunara really has popped up as the highest priority AD carry at this point in the meta, and that is going to be going towards Elk here in Game 1.
It's so weird because they've been trying to get Yunara to work. I feel like this is more of a takeaway from IG because Gala has been, I think, the best Yunara that we've seen here in the LPL. And so trying to get this away from them does mean that they're sacrificing a few champions. In my mind, you're getting Talia potentially here for Rookie. That could be a really strong champion for him. And already we're getting that Trundle, so dissuading some of that front line that usually can enable a champion like Yunara.
See what exactly Invictus Gaming want to follow this Trundle up with. Obviously, JJ was great here on the Trundle with IG in the playoffs in the past. Way certainly able to pilot this one as well. Matching the AD carries would make sense. Corki, somebody that can match the late game damage, obviously, of somebody like a Yunara pick. And that's going to be the selection here to round out the first phase for Invictus.
So Corki is going to mostly operate in this game as kind of a lane bully, something that Gala and Meiko can try to use the fact that it has such strong dueling power early on, especially at level 1, but then mid-game kind of goes into this power spike where you have a lot of range with your ultimate. So I'm interested to see what form, because IG's composition is quite malleable right now from just the two champions that they have. Versus a Trundle, though, always have to be worried about this Jarvan, so that lockdown is going to be incredibly pivotal. And it seems like BLG really want to make sure that their solo lanes and this mid-jungle are going to be able to run over the map and let Yunara basically be like a second-string damage dealer.
Yeah, just, you know, very powerful 2v2 for Beishuan and Knight in the Aurora and the Jarvan. Obviously, the counter into the Trundle, you pop the Cataclysm, and all of a sudden the Trundle can't run at you or run at the big carries anymore. And that's the big reason why this has been a pretty big counter ever since Trundle has taken over the meta a little bit back in split number 2. We see now the Rise getting locked in for Rookie to match into the Aurora as we head into the second phase of bans with a top laner and a support on each side waiting to be selected.
All right, a ticking time bomb here. I think for IG, if you get to 2 and 3 items, you're going to feel really strong about your chances here in this game of taking that first one. And it does mean that we'll have to see how Beishuan plays this early game, because Jarvan can be an early game skirmisher, has a lot of utility like you're mentioning versus the Trundle. We get into second phase of draft here, and supports are going to continue to be the focus. We saw in the kind of teaser for this series that a big focus was on and Meiko. We talked about at the end of the season that Meiko has been the most legendary support that this league has ever seen, and who is really next up? Because international viewers might say it's On because he's been to so many internationals recently, but I think the throne is still very much unclaimed by anybody else.
I feel like a lot of the supports kind of have had their highs and lows. And when we talk about Hong over on Top Esports, for instance, where, you know, he was such a consistent player and then, you know, had some very low moments on Weibo, but now is back to being one of the best best supports. Now you think of players like On, Crisp, and, you know, just a lot of different names here in the LPL that could be considered in those departments. And that's something that On is going to try to continue to establish. Hey, making it to yet another international event would certainly help add to that resume, especially if it involves taking down somebody like Meiko along the way. See a Scion banned away as well, as TheShy not going to be able to play that one here in this first game. And now IG waiting to figure out what they want to lock in here. The Nautilus, nice takeaway as well from what BLG have in their hands. Going to go towards Meiko in the bottom side.
Gives them guaranteed peel. This IG team is incredibly resilient, so that explosive punch that we wanted to see from BLG might be muted by their efforts. And I gotta say, I feel like we're watching a chess match here, Grapes, because first we have the Alistar and the Annie band away. We're taking away Yunara from IG, and so IG in response are going to take Nautilus away for the rest of the series for On. Feels like we're getting really weird priorities for these two teams, and kind of a boxing match of, okay, you're going to try and nickel and dime us here, well, we're going to steal something from the rest of this best of 5.
It's going to be the final composition here for BLG, rounded out by a Renekton and a Leona, specialty for Bin, and on another champion that he's going to be able to do some good work on in terms of hard engage. BLG, pretty solid 5v5 setup, and that's kind of what we always thought they were going to do, and I also like in general what that mid jungle in Beige 1 and Knight could have in store for impacting the early stages of this one, getting BLG off to an advantageous state like they have had to do in order to find wins here in the second half of the season.
Oh my god, Grapes. 2 items for this IGG. Just to think about it, right? Seraphs and a Roa for this Rise. You're going to have 2-item Ornn. You're going to have 2-item Corki playing against BLG. I mean, there are ways for BLG to kind of get around this, but it requires them to play a strong early game, and I feel like the champs that they have for this really work well. The Ornn into Renekton matchup is going to be pushing early on. Aurora is going to have push, and while the bot lane may not be as stable, this Redemption Rush meta that we're getting into for supports just means that more fighting, and the supports are going to be incredibly squishy, especially with Unsealed Spellbook at the helm. So I think we need to see how BLG can open up this early game and show us a strong showing here.
Yeah, I mean, eyes on Beishwan, right? Is the not new addition, but somebody who was plugged back in very recently, hasn't had a ton of playing time in this split, even though obviously his performance and his addition to the roster in split number 2 helped get BLG up to a second place finish in the LPL, get them to MSI. On this Jarvan, you're going to have to impact the early game. Work with Knight. That's something that obviously the BLG jungle position has always had to do. Try to coordinate all of these super talented laners to work together as a unit. Now Jarvan being a big facilitator in the early game, going to be a fun one to see how that one ends up working out. Before we get into the game, let's take a look at our predictions for this series across our broadcast team. A lot of us on the IG side, you can't really blame it, just given the recent success, not only that IG have had in general, but also over BLG specifically.
I just think that IG are showing to be one of our best teams, if not probably the best team in the league right now. I think this series will probably cement it in my mind whether or not they're going to be able to challenge top esports on the other side of the bracket, and it is so important for them to have this win because I think IG in a lower bracket, BLG in a lower bracket are going to ruin some teams.
We're here in Shenzhen for day number 3 of the LPL playoffs. Upper semifinals between BLG and Invictus Gaming starts right now. You can see at the top of your screens, logos might look a little different for BLG and IG. Well, that's because it is Teachers' Day here in China. Well, not here in China, but where you guys are watching the games right now. And basically, these 2 logos are sponsored by 2 elementary schools that are supporting each individual team in China, BLG and Invictus Gaming. Some of the kids are here on the stage right now, watching in the arena, and hey, no better way to get the youth up and going here and supporting some league.
Yes, this is how, by the way, North America, let's take some notes. This is how we get the new generation of League players. This is how we find our next Knights. This is how we get another Deft and Faker story, if we're being honest, right? Or Yagao and Knight. Oh, already some early trading. On loses half of his HP, and interesting enough, this is actually going to be Gala with the Phosphorus Bomb start. Not something that we typically see, but definitely was a little bit more, I think, explored around when they made changes to Corki a few patches ago.
Shout out to Jachi on FPX, big proponent of the start here, but it does mean that you get shoved in, maybe are not as powerful in terms of just dual threat in that early stage of the game. So Elk not going to get that early push, likely have a good position to start getting that level 2 power spike a little bit earlier on. We see both junglers also moving towards the bottom lane, and that's going to be a fun thing to watch, specifically for Beishwan, obviously onto this Jarvan. As soon as you get level 2, you could always go for a gank. It seems like Beishwan leaning towards that full clear, but obviously has some strong lanes to work with. I mean, just look at the map right now. All 3 lanes are pushed into IG side.
Which is interesting because usually when you start Phosphorus Bomb, you should be able to have a stronger hold of the lane, but those Unleash stacks for Elk are going to make it a little easier, and obviously the Nautilus into Leona matchup is probably providing a little bit more safety here. And with both junglers, the jobs of them are really different this game. Wei is almost always a facilitator for his lanes, and Beichuan can be something similar here, but on the Trundle, I think you get an extreme pillar value versus his team. Like, look at how low range this Yunara is going to be versus a Renekton as well. Pillar is going to ruin a lot of these ganks.
I feel like in general way, gonna want to play more of that counter jungle style, or counter gank style, where as soon as Beishwan uses the EQ, all of a sudden you pop that pillar and it becomes much easier to play this game out. Now, see a bit of an invade being sniffed out by Beishwan, but Wei's gonna be able to smite away the blue buff, secure the first third. We saw the lower third that our producer Rare Adam put through, and part of the conversation that we had in the draft for this first game, takeaways from their opponents in terms of picking commands. Elk, not as much success individually on the Yunara, but it's such a big pick for Gala that overall BLG think is beneficial, not just for this game, but also for the series.
Elk was definitely a victim in a lot of those games. Those were not his fault some of those times. There was, I think, one game where I was like, okay, maybe we're not playing this champion anymore, but it's a lot of those games. One of those was the incredibly long AL 51-minute banger. So.
Oh my God, you're right. I remember.
Yes, yeah, that one I feel like he was a little bit of a victim. So we'll see what the rest of this game has to hold. Yeah. And a big portion of this game I think is going to come down in 3.5 minutes time. Those grubs spawning. I think neither of these teams are really going to utilize those grubs as well, but IG I think have a much easier time of hitting onto turrets. No Valkyrie here for Gala does mean that damage potential here for the IG bot lane is tempered.
He'll get burned by On and Meiko here off that exchange. A typical thing that you now see, and I have to get used to as well as a play-by-play caster, is to me immediately when you hear summoner spells going off, you're like, oh, something big's happening. These guys have spellbook. It's about to, they're about to be able to replace it with another spell, so they might as well try to use one of them. And On actually gets Zenith bladed straight underneath the tower, takes a turret shot, as both of their supports had to burn a flash there.
All right. I think it's more important that the Nautilus doesn't have Flash versus the Leona, but again, because it's a Redemption Rush meta right now for supports, and because we have Spellbook, some of the tankiness that you would typically ascribe to a Leona and a Nautilus are gone. But Leona has a very broken basic ability, and Nautilus, well, he gets a shield. So we'll see what these two teams are going to go for. With Ornn in one of these matchups, I wouldn't be surprised if IG do opt for a swap. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case right now, especially you see that On is already moving into mid lane, and Elk has not even gone back to base yet.
Looks like Meiko is going to follow towards that middle lane, just to make sure that, whatever On can do, Meiko will be there to match. You see now Rookie at least a little bit more confident here in this mid lane. We have the Heralds, or the Grubs, I should say, spawning just over 2 minutes. Level 6 getting procced by TheShy. Using the Call to Forge Shot to just clear out the wave, get himself a nice reset with that mana bar ticking low, and there's that swap that you were talking about. Gala getting a reset and heading up towards the top side of the map.
I wonder if that ult was necessary. Like, yes, TheShy would have not maybe been able to get all of that solo, but now he doesn't have ultimate to help him clear a wave on bottom side, and that does mean that these next 2 minutes for TheShy are going to be a little worrisome. We'll see if he opts for the teleport. Bin is actually going to use his teleport first, and that should mean that now TheShy actually will have tempo to maybe join in on a topside fight in 1.5 minutes.
Yeah, I think I like this overall for IG. Burning the TP. TheShy will have his ulti by the time the Heralds, or sorry, the Grubs, I'm saying Herald, will have spawned. So just using it to get a little bit of extra time on the map and get that reset in. The Bramble Vest already picked up. Means that it's going to be very hard for Bin to move this Ornn at this point. Not that it was very easy to begin with.
He's already feeling good. He's got a Bramble Vest. He's done. He's like, all right, cool. Lane matchup's over. I'm just sitting here. I'm going to get myself maybe a Sunfire, and guess what? You can't push the wave versus me anymore. Junglers are getting very close to level 6. Rookie.
Oh, Rookie. One more auto. Knight's going to flash away from the last tower shot as well. Picking up a solo kill. First blood to BLG. Wow, Knight coming out with a bang here in this best of 5.
You can see it in the player cams, too. He's like, he knew he was a little smooth with it. And, I mean, Rookie doesn't have TP or Flash anymore, but still has Outroam Warp, so can get around the map a little bit quicker. Let's see if IG are going to be able to bounce back. That was an incredibly clean solo kill coming on through for Knight.
And we saw some of your highlights that we pulled from the JDG series. He's able to do that to Scout quite often, and yeah, it looks like Rookie going to be the victim this time around, as Knight continuing to look like the best mid laner here in the league. Gets BLG off to a good start. Now we see Wei with the Subjugate in hand, going to use it onto On while the Eclipse is in. That means Leona is going to melt very quickly, as IG will find a response right back, getting a kill into the Trundle's hand.
But does this mean that they're going to get all 3 grubs? Because On is gonna respawn in 5 seconds. He's gonna be able to teleport back into top side, and we'll have to see what happens with Beitron and where he's out on the map. Rookie playing a little too disrespectful against this Aurora. That is the one way that Aurora can try to beat Rise in the early game. It is try to get early push. Rookie can join this fight late. He will have to realm more.
Beitron with flash EQ, doesn't find a knockup, but still can use that Cataclysm, waiting to find the perfect moment. Now uses it onto Wei, but he will go down in response. But Elk has been transcended, issuing out auto attacks like it's nobody's damn business, and allows for BLG to pick up the feats of warfare with Elk dashing away. The final rocket from Gala, though, will make it a trade. He mounts forward for a second, and now it's Rookie versus Knight on the top side river, and we saw how it worked the last time around. Knight feeling very confident in this exchange as Rookie trying to find the overloads, misses another one here. Knight with 3-hit passive, and the Weirding will take him down, and BLG will win the extended fight around the Grubs.
It might just be mid-diff. It might just be mid-diff at 9 minutes here, Grapes. This guy is 4-0-1. He has 9 stacks of the Dark Steel, so expect a Magi's coming out. And that was only a single grub taken by IG. Some mechanical misplays coming on through from BLG, but the mid laner of this team really trying to step forward and carry him.
I mean, this was our featured matchup coming into this series, and you know, we thought that Knight was great, obviously, but to me, Rookie was somebody who was able to at least withstand some of the pressure a little bit better than a player like Scout has been able to this split, right? And we saw the solo kills that Knight was able to put down upon his opponent in the upper bracket quarterfinals that resulted in them getting that reverse sweep. We're seeing a little bit of that again here, but it's starting with you know, a nice engage overall from this skirmish.
This is part of the fight that we called out was a little bit tricky here for IG. You win for that topside play. There's no ultimate for Wei to take away and subjugate one of these targets, so Elk gets to just let loose. This is that second string DPS that we were looking for while all of his frontline is buying time and buying spells from his opponent. We're getting a play here. Is Knight going to get solo killed by TheShy? I doubt it, but dude, he has a almost 20 CS lead over his mid lane counterpart. This is huge. He's 1,500 gold. I'm going to keep harping on it because I think he's going to recall and have a completed item at 10.5 minutes.
I mean, we normally look at, in terms of stats, like goal difference at 14 and you know, things like that to track how good a player is doing in lane. If you're like a few hundred up at 14 on average, that's considered to be pretty good. And you can see in general, Knight, you know, average, you know, 400, which is very insane. The fact that he's at 1,500 plus at this point, pretty remarkable. And that's just going to continue to snowball given how this Aurora is going to be able to function in some of these 5v5 team fights.
And this gold differential, by the way, is second in the league from Split 3. Not just in his role, but all across every single player here in the LPL. I think that's incredible. We get to see it in his inventory now stacked. A full-on Leandri's Torment here. I think it is impossible for IG to want to try to fight, so where they find their timers, this is the strength of Invictus Gaming so far in 2025. It is finding sacrifices, when and where can they play around the map, and finding exactly the moment where they can kind of stand tall and take back a game.
That's a great point you bring up, which is that BLG, you know, kind of a prerequisite that they're able to get out to an early lead against IG. The problem is what happens once we get later into the game. Once those big mines start to flow and maybe the brawn and the might of just the hands that BLG have start to fall off in favor of Invictus Gaming. Obviously, all of Split 3, across the 2 best of series that they've played, BLG were able to get out to advantageous goal position. You know, it could have been close here or there, but in general, they were in good spots. But IG ended up winning both of those best of 3s. And that is something that BLG are going to have to try to turn around if they want to make their way towards that winner's finals like they were able to do last split.
Trinity Force completed for Gala, so has a little bit of damage. This is going to be the Kraken Slayer and Runon start here for BLG. There's been some different builds floating around with Blade of the Ruin King and Experimental Hexblade. Imagine we might see that at some point for one of these other champions later on in the series, but BLG, they're going to brute force this. They put a large amount of their focus into the top side, so much of their vision here. You don't win this trade versus a 2 Grubs team. Sorry, IG.
IG have the Trundle and they have the Corki helping them out too, but first tower gonna go BLG's way. It's gonna be the feats of strength now fully awarded to them, but in terms of gold, not gonna be the worst case scenario here for Invictus as they're able to trade something on the bottom side of the map. overall at where things are standing right now. About a 1,500 gold lead in the hands of BLG.
Oh, wow.
Here, the power of this Trundle, that Chomp is able to reset on this tower so much. It allows for that tier 2 to go down on top of the tier 1. On goes the Solar Flare and will force Wei to flash away, but you're going to take that trade as long as it means you get that tier 2 tower.
Yeah, Wei can now either continue farming up his camps that he has on the bottom side of the map and then clear up and be ready for the Herald in a minute and a half. That is an incredible trade. That is exactly what we were talking about right before. The Trundle there, but I think more importantly, the Trinity Force completed for Gala allows for them to take all those turrets. So all in all, it's a 2-in-1 trade in favor of IG. It does equalize the gold a little bit more, only 1,000 here for BLG. And we're going to have 2 objectives spawning at the same time. So I think from IG's perspective, are they willing to trade this either up or down? Like, are they going to go for the Dragon, try to get Dragon stacking on their side, or go for the Herald, contest the enemy team, and maybe try to get themselves a little bit of breathing room here in this game with some dosh in their pocket?
I think the Dragon would be better for them. You take a look at where the gold is allocated right now on IG's side. A big lead for Gala, but this is the champion of the Corki that is going to want to scale a little bit more. Meanwhile, Knight's good to go right now, right? You have the Leandries, you have the Sword User going for that second item, already have a large rod in your inventory. Like, BLG would love to fight a 5v5 if IG let them. So if they can get the Dragon, you know, or just let BLG get that Herald, you can continue to try to stall this game out, which is what IG love to do against these teams.
It's all about getting gold right now, especially for Knight. If he can get to his second item before either of these objectives, I think it's going to be a little tough without them having teleport quite yet. But Bin now completed with a Black Cleaver. Full first items already coming on through for all of our carries in this team. And more importantly, I'm looking at Meiko. He has his redemption. On does it. So we'll see how much of an impact it has. It has been a huge point of focus for a lot of supports going into the competitive meta on 25-17.
Has high impact. You can heal all 5 of your teammates while also hurting all 5 of the others. Team want to fight around this Dragon. I think BLG realized that IG would be very happy with just getting the first 2 dragons, stalling this game out, like we were originally saying. So they want to prioritize that side of the map. But IG just trying to avoid fighting, although it might not be able to happen as Gala is getting caught out by Knight at this point. That is so much damage being issued. Not going to even be able to be saved by Meiko's redemption. He dies just too quickly. And now Meiko can be the next target, using the depth charge to buy some space, and he will be able to escape. But it does mean that BLG find yet another kill, sending Knight to 5-0 in this game number 1.
And guess what, Grapes? Now, BLG can take the Herald, they can reset, go back on the bottom side. IG were trying to see if they can get golden experience here for Rookie, who was trying to get to level 11 before this fight. That doesn't end up happening, so now BLG will be able to grab this. Maybe they immediately try to pop this and look into mid-wave, but there is not a timer here for IG to look towards this Dragon right now. There are ultimates missing here from BLG, but I think they can really try to ham-fist this. They can try to force the situation onto their opponents.
TheShy slowly walking up right now, does have his ultimate and his flash. They do want to make this a contested fight, but it looks like the Herald is just going to actually dodge away from the proc. Nice interaction there by Wei on the pillar. Very well done, understanding all of the different intricacies of this Trundle champion and the interactions it can have with the pillar.
If you don't know, by the way, if the Herald is about to charge and you put a pillar in front of it, because it is terrain, it can't go through. So really nice piece of tech, as we were explaining there, but look at the gold differentials for our teams. Obviously, we've been focusing on the mid lane, but Beichuan is up 40 because Wei has been so focused trying to help his teammates try to take all these turrets and bottom side. So it's turning into an experience differential between our 2 junglers. Almost 2 levels here for Beichuan. A player that, again, very maligned coming onto this team, and even after MSI, people were calling for another jungler. They're saying, okay, like this guy is just not working. But obviously, he's brought something to this team and got them that win over JDG in the playoffs.
Hey, name's looking grim. Like, when you see Beichuan has been subbed in after a Game 1 loss by BLG against JDG, a team that has struggled throughout the entirety of this split.
Yeah.
People were thinking, oh, okay, this is cooked, right? But Beichuan somehow able to channel something within the BLG team and allow them to find that reverse sweep. And you can see them kind of rallying around their old jungler. Obviously, some medical issues with this player as well. Don't know entirely how much of that was behind the decision versus just, deciding that maybe another player would be the better answer. But right now, it looks like IG trouble as BLG feeling good with their jungler at the helm. As you can see, you have another flag and drag onto way, but Bin already to flash away despite popping the dominance. We're going to see a fight here around the top lane tier 2. Meiko getting just one shot by Knight. As IG look to go for the aggressive play, they're going to end up potentially paying for it on going forward with the Zenith play. And Knight with the Between Worlds is going to force Rookie to flash away. Hexgate over from Beijhuan. He's looking for a massive ultimate. He locks in both of the solo laners to call the Fortune God's going to buy some time, but not nearly enough as Elk's able to pick up another kill. Knight's got himself a double, and BLG get 4 for the price of 1.
Grapes, are we allowed to overreact to game 1? Yes or no?
Do it. Do it.
Okay. BLG are back, boys. Let's go. We've got them right back into gaming. 2-item Aurora comes into this fight. Elk is flashing forward while he's transcendent. They get to take all of the jungle from IG. They get to take all of the kills from that. Was a almost full-on ace there coming in for BLG. And barely losing a scratch here. It's just Beijhuan who ends up falling. Bin ends up soaking so much of that turret. And then Knight. This guy is way too fed at this point.
Has a Shadow Flame already in his inventory. Would be 1,000 gold if he's able to get taken down, but don't think he's gonna even go down here. Gets knocked up with the death charge. Okay, Rookie in with the Realm Warp, a teleport from TheShy for good measure. They wanted to make sure this Aurora did not escape. It did cost him a lot of resources, but hey, 1,000 gold is 1,000 gold.
Exactly. It's going to go right back into Wei's pockets. He will be able to at least get 2 camps on bottom side, and maybe he gets access to those Krugs. But I gotta say here, Graves, BLG are playing with that same level of play that we have seen from them and have let them dominate the LPL in years past. We start this play off with Bin using his health bar really, really well. I think the Redemption wasn't as well placed, obviously buying a lot of time, but this focus onto Meiko, and there's just no damage coming in from IG. No tank stats either. Remember, this is Redemption Rush, Unsealed Spellbook on the Nautilus, so all those tank stats that we were talking about not available to them. And you watch the back half of this fight, it is just flashes being blown from all of the carries. That makes that dragon fight in 3 minutes even tougher, and the Otacon that's coming up soon, I think a hard ask.
Well, in 5 seconds time, you can see the control just in terms of vision, in terms of where champions are currently oriented. BLG know that that will be a very important thing for them to try to take down. Just a nice next opportunity to try to force a fight against IG, because those have all been working pretty well at this point. 2,500 gold in their favor. Now again, not over by any stretch of the imagination. This Rise and this Corki are going to scale. TheShy getting close to that second item as well. We talked about the spikes for this team being a little bit later on into the game, and so BLG doing a nice job to punish that for now, but they have to continue to keep their foot on the gas.
I will admit I do want to see IG maybe not contest this Otacon. You're going to have, you've just now finished the Roa, the Seraphs is completed here for Rookie. You're going to have Muramana almost completed soon here for Gala, and really all you're losing is about a level of experience. I know it sounds like heresy to everybody at home, but we need time to scale in this game. We need to get some of this gold back into important members on IG, and it is close. TheShy is almost level 13, almost level 14, so he's going to be giving out Masterwork items soon, but IG, they need to recognize what and how they can kind of get around this objective and what they're allowed to give away.
The objective has been started up, and you know, to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit here, the resistances will be shredded and maybe an opportunity to pick a member off here. And so IG gonna at least poke around, see what they can do around this Otacon. Got about 7,500 HP. TheShy walking up with here in the area as well. All 10 members for both teams around the top side of the map because this objective is deemed so important. But Wei goes way too far forward. The Subjugate not even enough to save him, and he goes down just like that. Otacon secured for BLG, and now it's a 5v4. Knockup only lands onto On. It's a double kill already here for the Aurora, and Bin gonna jump forward and clean house. Rookie gonna go down. Elk picks up the kill, a 4-0 plus the Otacon for Bilibili Gaming in game 1.
The Trundle had no backup. No one was there to get him into the pit, so he gets bursted out immediately. Otacon goes over as well, so it's just a slow free fall here for IG as BLG continue to stomp this game. And right on time here, Graves. Hextech portals, let's get a teleport out from our Aurora, and let's get ourselves our second dragon here. This game is going to feel more like a formality here to start off this series. I mean, you just see, where are all the tanks? Meiko's on the other side of the wall. TheShy's nowhere near to engage. This fight's already over before it begins.
I think it was LS who said, you know, did the math. You know, Otacon gives you about a cannon minute worth of XP per player. not worth it, especially if you're so far behind waiting for these spikes to be fighting a bad fight at that. And that's exactly what IG decided.
It depends on how many blood reses are on the map, and obviously as we get later into the game, levels are going to cost a lot more. You're going to basically need about 1,500 experience. That's basically a level at this point in this game. So yeah, that's about right. That math checks out. So, but guess what? The Otacon is big. It's scary. Big buff. It shows up on top of your screen, so you know it's important. It's got the same notification as a dragon. So in my mind, the dopamine receptors are saying we gotta fight.
Speaking of Dragon, second one of the game picked up here for BLG as well. Gold lead up to over 5,000. A lot of that's in the hand tonight. Take a look at that gold lead. It's continuing to grow and grow. 4.2k, 3 full items on this Aurora, and the upgraded boots to spare. This is going to be a very tough game now for IG to try to overcome.
It is important to me that Knight is able to show up not only rookie, but this entire bracket, because BLG have been really doubted all year long. They came in as the favorites, right? We were talking about, okay, BLG, try to reclaim your throne. You were just in World's Grand Finals, but obviously split 1, a little bit of a disappointment. Split 2, ending in Grand Finals, by all means, I think is an accomplishment in itself. But Knight, I think, needs to stamp his legacy on this league, take the control of it, because right now it's a 5-way, it's like a 3-way tie between Kanavi and, who is it? It's Kanavi, Knight, and I know there's one other player that I'm forgetting right now that all hold 5 titles here in the LPL.
369 or something, maybe? I don't know.
It's probably 369, yeah. But it's
a lot.
really incredible if Knight can grab that, because he's been a player that I think every year outside of his starting one has been talked about as the next upcoming player, as essentially our version of Chovy.
And, you know, there are certain times when we see this guy international play and he looks just like it, but just continuing to add to that legacy, find championships. He was able to do a lot of that here over these past couple of years, but not so much in 2025. Just getting over that next hump would be a huge step for this BLG roster if they want to make their way back to internationals. Because, I totally agree with you. There's a lot of doubt right now for this team. You saw the predictions, all of us favoring Invictus Gaming in this series because of what BLG have looked like over the past couple of weeks. But I mean, if Knight goes 10-1 every game, I think we'd have a lot of different conversations over who would be favored here.
You should have seen the predictions went up, and some of our moderators showed the YouTube chat that was going on, and oh my god, Gala's dead.
Oh, flashes away from the ulti, and now maybe Knight's gone too far forward. That's a caster curse if I've ever seen one, but it's a 1-for-1 as Gala does eventually go down, and Elk now going to be the primary carry to win the fight for BLG. That's a double onto Rookie. They're looking for TheShy as well underneath the tier 2 tower. Call the force got not going to connect, and Elk will pick himself up yet another. A triple kill for the Unara, and Knight goes down, but Elk steps right back up as BLG win yet another fight.
They might just win the game. That's Nexus gone. That is BLG striking first in this series. Do they want to go for this? No. They're not going to even take the inhibitor. They're going for the Baron. Big purple worms on the screen. That dopamine has to be kicked in. I actually do want to revise my point. It was a 5-way tie. The other 2 players are Xiaohu and Clearlove. So very important for Knight, and a small mistake from the mid laner, but I think you will be willing to trade some of your gold advantage for a 5-man ace and the Baron.
4-man, Meiko's still alive, and maybe this TheShy stack's going to be a little bit, feels bad there, but yeah, you're going to be happy regardless because that Baron does get picked up. Gold lead up to 10k, and BLG looking comfortable.
Just jumps over this wall. 2 damage combos, literally just 2 spells. Barely doesn't get the ultimate to land thanks to the flash from Gala. It's a TP, it's a lot of flashes here from IG, and they're not going to have these for the next few moments. There's another dragon spawning. How much can IG sacrifice? I think it's been a little too much. They've been drawn into BLG's game. Oh my god, in the picture-in-picture, they actually almost caught Rookie, but a Realm Warp gets him to safety. And it's going to be BLG using this Baron to push on a bottom wave while they wait for a minute before that 3rd dragon.
TheShy just hitting level 14. Not necessarily scaling that IG thought they'd be able to get. And another pick potentially here onto Wei. He gets taken down by all 5 members of BLG. And it's going to be a numbers disadvantage with the Baron buff in BLG's hands as they try to end this game number 1 in the base of IG.
How much can they do? They've got 2 grubs, they've got a Baron, the Redemption's also going to give them a little bit of healing.
Depth charge lands onto 4, nicely done, and the Call to Forge God's going to take down On. Beijtuan dies as well, beautiful job by IG to make sure that the game doesn't end just yet. Grim Prison lands onto Bin, but he flashes forward, and in goes Knight going between worlds and ending the world of IG in game number 1. That's a double kill for Knight. 12, 2 and 8 on the Aurora, and gonna give BLG the first win of this series.
That is the easiest Knight MVP I've ever seen, and I got to watch him in JDG in 2023, so a great start to the series, one that a lot of folks were thinking this wasn't going to go all the way, that BLG had no chance going up against IG. The thing I was talking about the YouTube chat, everybody in chat was just clowning Miracu for thinking this was going to be a 3-0 for BLG.
Hey, right now they maybe in a good spot, as you know, BLG getting that first win, and it was a dominant one at that. And you can credit, you know, IG for, you know, finding team fight opportunity, or like building a team fight composition, but they just were unable to find the right fights. They were unable to get to the point where maybe they're able to out macro BLG, like we were saying has happened over the past couple of matchups between these two squads. BLG all hands from minute 1, and it ends up resulting in them winning this one rather handily.
Early lane leads, solo kills Rookie, moves in and makes a few mistakes in the mid lane, but goddamn, that was a clean game from Knight, all things considered. Absolutely destroyed Rookie, who hasn't been our most solid laner. I think we look back at our head-to-head and we're talking about Knight having the second best goal differential at 15 in the league. Meanwhile, Rookie is 12th amongst mid laners, and that's a tough stat when there's been, what, like 14 of them? So not a good look for Rookie here in this game number 1. Obviously, IG, not a mechanics team, one of more of the mind, so hopefully they can bounce back with this series and Danny can try to fix these issues.
It's more the Rookie that we saw maybe during parts of the earlier splits of 2025, where IG were looking more on the inconsistent side of things. Not at the stage where they've won 10 of their last 11 series. Obviously, this is a best of 5, so IG still have plenty of time to come back and send themselves into that upper bracket finals. But man, right now, BLG look good. Something about just that reverse sweep against JDG seems to have reinvigorated them, and they're off to a very hot start here.
There's a draft that we said BLG needed to come out the gate swinging. Well, if you do it like that, and I think you had a perfect line for this game. If we start every game with Knight being 10-1, might be a quick night here. We'll see what happens in the rest of this series. But IG, yes, they were a slow team, but that felt like a few too many mistakes. We got to see the Jarvan versus Trundle interaction so many times. Ended up being really problematic here for IG, as they didn't really get any kind of foothold in this game.
And that's been the story of these two teams playing against each other here, specifically in this season. You know, Split 1 and Split 2, BLG actually have always been able to take the games against IG, including in that Split 2 lower bracket finals, and they actually played each other twice in that playoff bracket just last split. But in Split number 3, when IG has won the games against BLG, it's come in the later stages when they're able to come back, you know, sometimes with champions like Ornn and Ryze, which hit big spikes around level 16. Never were able to get there because of what BLG were able to exert in that early to mid game, especially in the mid lane, with Knight popping off here in this one.
Also, have to note, as we get further in this series here for BLG, whether or not we might see Beichuan and Shadow kind of play around. A big storyline for BLG in this year is Wei obviously being booted off of the team, and Beichuan having to play against him. There are 3 BLG junglers here today, and depending on how you look at it, and depending on form of play, a lot of people might agree that there are 3 BLG junglers. And this first game was not a good look here for IG.
Yeah, Wei never really got off and running. I mean, it had a couple of interesting interactions, but I feel like overall IG, the way their composition functions, as soon as you lose this fight where you get Knight early 4 kills around the grubs, becomes very difficult to play the game. And I guess the first big problem for them was deciding to go for the grubs after exerting so much to just get that first kill. And, you know, obviously Rookie made him pay.
I think a masterful kind of look at the draft. I love this first draft to start off the series. We came in, we're like, okay, we're first picking Yunara, then we have the Trundle blind. If I'm Wei, I'm saying, okay, we're not doing that again. I'm never like just blinding Trundle when there's a Jarvan in the game. This is an exact punishment that we got to see here from BLG. And now there's some really important champions. You noted the Ryze and the Ornn now out of the game. You're also going to have 2 of the engaged supports already out of the series. So I think On maybe has to try to start to look towards other champions, where Khan's going to be, I think, a massive prio alongside the Alistar and Rel in game numbers 2.
Alistar, one of Meiko's most played champions. I wouldn't be surprised to see BLG just ban that every single game for the remainder of this best of 5. There's no reason to just give it to him. I mean, personally, that's my thoughts, but we'll see. As obviously Fearless does cause some weird thoughts to happen here with certain people. This was, again, an instance where Knight maybe goes a little bit too far. Nice flash from Gala, but at this point, BLG just way too far ahead.
If I am 3 levels over the enemy AD carry as mid laner, I'm also doing the same thing. So Knight,
Yeah.
I get it. You also landed 2 spells, Electrocute proc, and almost killed him. So he had the vision, and they end up winning the game like 3 minutes after this anyway. So
We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, Elk got another win on Yunara. The first one was kind of a freebie that he was able to grab versus a lower team, but really, really important win. And I think finding a game 1 win to, I think, right the wrongs of a JDG series where they started off so slow. Maybe I'm willing to, in the history books, maybe chalk that up to we have not played games in a little bit, at least not any stage games so far for BLG, whereas JDG, they had the privilege. They got to play through the play-ins. They did 3 games over in Suzhou, over in LNG's arena versus LGD, so they got a little bit more acquainted with 25-17 before their opponents.
And I'm thrilled to see BLG get off to an early lead, especially because, obviously, many of us were favoring Invictus Gaming to win this series. And so seeing BLG come out with a bang in this one certainly raises the stakes and raises the prospects of the fact that this could be a barn burner in the upper bracket semifinals. I mean, we could pull up the predictions real quick before we get to our player of the game. Everybody, except for just a couple, I think it was just 2 people, 2 of our moderators were on BLG's side. And there's already 3 of us, including you all, that are wrong. You had IG winning this one 3-0. So did
I
Roth
couldn't bet 3-1, and I really didn't see 3-2. I hear MVP music. Who is it? I think we know. Cool.
What?
So Knight earns his 10th MVP of the split. It's his 2nd one here in playoffs, and obviously well-deserved. We talked about him from basically minute 5 onward for the rest of the game.
And deservedly so, starting with that solo kill onto Rookie as we will wrap up our coverage of game number 1 here to the Grubs fight, to just every other team fight after that. Knight proving why he is always in those MVP conversations and why he's listed as the best mid laner here in the LPL in Split 3 2025. Before we head to a short break, we want to give a big shout out to all of our Coffee members. If you want to support LPL English, consider becoming a Coffee member, as it is the best way to support the LPL English project, with the vast majority of your contributions going directly to the show. A lot of the initial payments go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk of it also pays on-air talent and content creators. Subscribe to our Coffee. It is linked in the chat right now to unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews for our final stretch of LPL 2025. Thank you so much to all of our Coffee supporters as BLG look to try to maybe extend their lead, or IG will even things up. We'll see with game number 2 coming your way in just a few short minutes.